All right. Let's see here. Okay. So yeah, it looks like we should be live. And yeah, this is going to be a short stream. We're just going to see who trickles in because I know a lot of people are probably pretty busy uh, with everything that's happened this week. It's been a long week, man. M35 Benvids. I see you I see you in chat. Um, let's see. Where to begin? So, yeah. Missed my stream that I was planning to do earlier this week because I had multiple things going on. I had an unexpected visit um, from a relative. I had uh, not unexpected, well, actually, yes, an unexpected guest. Other than family matters, I had an unexpected guest who I was very happy to house because they are someone doing a lot of work helping Ukrainians, and they themselves were Ukrainian or are Ukrainian. They've already gone back home now. Um, Met some soldiers, got to shake their hands, got to speak with them a bit. Uh, yeah, I've had a lot of stuff going on and got plenty of video to show you guys later on. So we'll definitely have that up before too long on the channel. Um, a lot of activism stuff, a lot of uh, stuff related to assistance to Ukraine, related to uh, the elections in Georgia and Moldova and the United States. Just a lot of stuff in general is going on this week. Well, the last couple of weeks, but especially this week. And yeah, um, a lot of stuff happened. Georgia, meaning Republic of Georgia, went about the way most of us, I think, expected. Unfortunately, um, Moldova kind of surprised everyone by coming out the gates with more of a pro-European Union stance, with all of their votes by a thin razor thin majority. And then the United States was the most surprising of all. The results and the situation there looking a lot more like the situation in Republic of Georgia, I think, than many are comfortable with. Yeah, so it's been a hell of a week. Um, we are going to keep doing fundraisers. We're gonna, now that things have, you know, calmed down a little bit, hoping to get back to having a consistent schedule. Uh, and keep doing the streams on Saturdays. More fundraising to help both soldiers and civilians. Um, I'm thinking I want to do some streams specifically for helping civilians, especially because we've done a lot specifically for soldiers. Um, yeah, and with regards to the U.S. election, I just want to say, hey, Hugh, welcome. I just want to say that everyone who may be disappointed or concerned or very fearful, maybe feeling even numb or despondent. Uh, I just want to remind every, not just American, but person in the North American continent, Americans, Canadians, Mexicans, but most specifically Americans. Freedom isn't free. And the history of all of the nations of that continent, I'd say um, quite particularly the United States, has been one where it's really interesting because there's this dichotomy of the United States in particular being founded on the principle of freedom, of political freedom, of rights, of people's voices being heard. And yet, from the very beginning, um, even though groups of people who, from the beginning of the Republic, were given voices that otherwise didn't have them in royal and imperial governments back in Europe, um, before republics were really catching on a lot more worldwide, replacing monarchies, especially. Um, it provided an opportunity, but it was, of course, to a very limited population compared to all people who the United States would come into contact with, interact with, house within its territory in the early days. And with every generation of Americans, through every point of progress, every setback, whether it was war, not once but twice against the British for freedom and the right to self govern, or uh, warring against themselves. Uh, the Civil War in the United States and the fight against certain people who thought that they should govern their affairs in a way that preserved uh, horrible institutions such as chattel slavery, or the political fights, um, legal in courtrooms, in protests on the streets, in jail cells for rights during the early 20th century, um, the movements of that time period, and then later on, the civil rights movement. Every generation has had to fight tooth and nail to gain more freedoms and to prevent them from being taken away. Now is no different than any of those times. So, to any American who may be listening, don't become numb. Don't leave your country. Don't think that it's the end, because it's not. And with regards to aid to Ukraine, um, I mean, we adapt, improvise, adapt, overcome. And I wish I could say that it's going to be a simple, wonderful, a simple answer. Ukraine takes back all the territories, has all the support it needs, or even without support or aid, manages to liberate all of its stolen territories, and this war ends perfectly favorably for Ukraine. But of course, we all know that's not the case, most especially with the situation now. That seems very, very much unlikely. So we plan and we prepare. And those of us who really do care and really do recognize the injustice of what was done to Ukraine, what is still being done to Ukraine, we will stand with Ukraine and Ukrainians as long as it takes, uh, however long Ukrainians want to continue fighting. It is their war and their home, their country, and only they can make that decision. I believe at the end of the day, they're the only ones who have the right to make that decision. But we also, um, just as people, can recognize the fact that, like Nagorno Karabakh in Armenia, or the situation between the PRC and ROC, China and Taiwan situation, or Somalia and Somaliland, or Siberia and Kosovo, or any number of other conflicts, especially frozen conflicts around the world. This is something that very well may and probably will come up again for future generations. And those of us who are in the position where we are young enough and likely have decades of life ahead of us, if we make smart decisions, of course, with our just in general, and if we're a little bit lucky, because you never know how long you're going to live. we're in a position to do all that we can to create a foundation to not only help Ukraine right now when it needs us, but to continue to assist and prepare in case there is more down the road years from now. So, with that, yeah, let me just take a look at chat right quick because I kind of just went off on a tangent there. Let's see. You've done a lot. It's always nice to see you on the different YouTube channels. You do incredible work. Appreciate it, Hugh. I feel like I don't do enough. I feel like I do very little. I actually, uh, with everything that's happened this week, I feel like there's a lot more that I need to do. And I mean, aside from all the other stuff I mentioned at the beginning of this stream, I also had work. So I've just been drowning in things to do. Um, yeah, and I'm not expecting it to change anytime soon. But I may shift my priorities from a few projects I was working on before to new ones, both related to Ukraine and related to uh, initiatives in several other countries and in Canada and the United States. Um, but yeah, for me, it's ergonomics. I'm always busy with something, but we can be busy with things and it can, feel like or appear like it's a lot, but there's different ways to measure things, different metrics, know. And I do feel like there's a lot more that I could be doing more efficiently. And that's what I strive for. Not just to be doing lots of stuff, but to be doing lots of stuff in a way that it exponentially compounds and becomes more effective over time. Basically, to not just get in a rut and think, well, I'm doing all that I can, without without really achieving certain metrics or goals of growth for the things that I do. I don't know if that makes sense, but I do appreciate it, man. I do appreciate your support in saying that. What are my thoughts on Trump's plan or the so-called plan to end the Ukraine-Russia war? I think it's BS. I think that, well, you know what? We have to work with what we've got, and I'm not going to pretend that I like Trump at all. But you work with what you've got, the hand that you're dealt, and you deal with it. And the next 4 years, especially Americans, are gonna need to start dealing things change. It's also possible it could be that only a few things change and it's not as monumental as some people think. Because a lot of what made all of this possible has already been happening for a long while in the states. Erosion of certain institutions and checks and balances and accountability measures, um, and trust between people within the United States of different backgrounds and opinions and viewpoints, especially. Um, but I mean, first time around, it's like okay, well, this can happen in any democracy, and then he got voted out, and of course, the war started uh, after his presidency, not while he was president. So this will be the first time to see it with that person in office. Um, oh well, the full-scale invasion. Let me rephrase that. The war had already started, and no U.S. administration really did anything until the full-scale invasion. But the war was going on since 2014, so we can't forget that. As for the plan for peace, anyone who really supports Ukraine and realizes that being allowed to exist, being tolerated or being well not tolerated having a larger military power come up to your borders and take what they want and say you'll be allowed to exist as a rump state because we've taken a huge swath of you. um no one would call that good. No one would call suing for peace in a situation like that truly supportive of Ukraine? Some people would argue it would be what's best for the Ukrainian people, especially if there isn't military aid bound to come in. Um, and for many people, understandably, saving lives is the most important thing. That's why there's very different rhetoric because it's two very different situations, but there's very different rhetoric between with regards to struggles that Ukrainian people are going through versus struggles that, as an example, Palestinian people uh, historically have and are going through. And one tends to be more of a militaristic, give Ukraine everything it needs to fight mentality, and the other is more of a uh, political battlefield, a very fraught political battlefield across multiple nation states on the topic, um, with different attitudes and opinions on what's best. So, anyway, I'm not really here to talk about that, but yeah, I think because I'm going off on a tangent that the situation is one where Trump is a wild card. You can't really trust much of anything he said. You can only really trust his actions, and also even then trust that he's erratic and he could change his thoughts on something like that, the flip of a dime. Um, so not just for the U.S., but for many countries around the world, including American allies and adversaries, this will be a time of volatility. Canada, USA, Ukraine. Hell yeah. Thank you, Hugh. Uh, one can't predict Trump. That's true. Is there civilian work for people who want to come and help, or only military? I'd be willing to learn EOD for post-war cleanup, but I don't want to be a frontline soldier. Yeah, no, absolutely. There's plenty of opportunities. There's civilian opportunities to help. There's non-military options. Of course, there's options to potentially serve with, Ukrainian armed forces or International Legion, other groups in a non-combat role. Um, but there's EOD work for yeah, explosive devices. Um, yeah, I mean, just start looking into it. There's plenty of ways to go. Now, a lot of it is volunteer work. Some of it's paid. So just be aware that you're going to have to handle your expenses. Um, be aware that be very aware of the fact that air defense systems were a big part of what was being sent by in aid packages from the U.S. and relied upon. And without those, it could be more dangerous in terms of missile barrages against Ukraine. So be careful, be aware of that. But yeah, if you're gonna go, then I I thank you, and yeah, I say mm, go out there and do your best. Do a damn good job, and thank you for your service if you do follow through with that. Uh, hey Cheryl, good to see you. Yeah, and to this stream, how long? We're almost 20 minutes in. We're only going to go for a few more minutes because we're not fundraising or anything right now. This is just me on here to let you guys know some of the stuff I had going on and why the stream didn't happen this last week with so many things happening. But we are still going to do another stream, another fundraiser. Um, and yeah, um, with regards to ways we can help Ukraine, I have been saying this for a while because it's important. Um, Regardless of what happens with the new US administration and with European governments moving forward, because what's really going to, a big thing that's going to matter now is look, the United States, in my opinion, failed, failed in terms of preservation of democracy, in terms of well, in terms of continuing to support allies, longtime allies in Europe, and to be perceived as a world leader among democratic nations. It already had a reputation of being a flawed democracy among many other countries. A flawed democracy, but a democracy nonetheless. Um, and we'll see how its reputation evolves moving forward. Um, but yeah, um, you got to stay in it to win it, as they say. Um, and so Americans need to stick with it and improve their country and not go numb, but instead organize and start working now from a political level, legal level. Organize, get to know lawyers, get to know protest organizers, activists, not just in elections, but like the Vietnam era, really start putting pressure on half of the country, putting pressure on for change. Um, because that was a thing that happened back then. There were a lot of civil protests and matters that eventually put pressure on the government. Um, and with regards to Ukraine, going back to my train of thought on that, support to partisans, support to the Ukrainian government itself, but also those who are living under occupation. They often are forgot about, unfortunately, but there are still people who, guys, I want to paint this picture for you because now it's one that many are concerned about because the entire Ukrainian nation is facing this issue. But there are a lot of people who for years and years and years now, for a decade, over a decade, have lived under Russian occupation. Um, yeah, who are Ukrainian, who were part of uh, Ukraine internationally before the annexation of Crimea and invasion back in 2014. And for 10 years, there have always been under resourced, having to be innovative, having to put things together, having to figure things out on their own partisan groups, uh, pools of resistance throughout the occupied territories. Support to them and support to all of Ukraine in whatever ways we can. Having that same mentality, that same idea of never giving up. If they can continue to do what they do under occupation, both peacefully and, well, in whatever other manners they need to, because it is a war, partisans are part of the war, um, then none of us have any excuses. There's always more that we can do, there's always more to be done. And we will persevere. Those in the North American continent, in Europe, in Ukraine itself, uh, and around the world. There are many wars and conflicts, a few that we've covered a bit on this channel. There's still the situation in Taiwan, which is very real and very likely to become a hot issue in the next few years to come within our lifetimes. There's the ongoing war in Myanmar that's kind of forgotten, the war in Sudan that's kind of forgotten, the war in Ethiopia that's kind of forgotten, which saying out loud all three of those makes me a little sad. Uh, because yeah, there's a lot of suffering going on all around the world. There's a lot of things going on. There's always a lot going on, but you get what I'm saying. Um, my point being that there's always some tyrant somewhere trying to put his boot on your neck or the necks of others that you may know. And right now, it's not the first time it's happened. It really isn't if you look at US history. But right now, it's time to dust ourselves off and prevent that boot from coming down. And if it does start to come down, then you pull out a knife and you stick it right through the rubber, and you don't let it come all the way down. You become a thorn in the side. You become an unstoppable part of resistance in every way that matters. And just so I'm clear, because I'm speaking metaphorically here, situations very different. I'm not making a direct comparison between occupied Ukraine and the US elections. Very different situations. But my point is the spirit of it, never giving up, whether you are on the upswing or the downswing, whether you have the advantage or the disadvantage. That is what matters. Keeping the flame alive, whether it's a blaze or an ember that you are fighting damn hard to keep from going out in the middle of the night. That is what really makes a difference. That's what shows who really take their freedom and democracy seriously, and those who would rather trade security, safety in exchange for them out of fear from real heroes, in my opinion. And that can be a subjective term because, of course, with geopolitics and fighting against tyranny, like many things in life, you end up with shades of gray. But I'm digressing. Let's take a look. I go off on my rants and then I kind of forget to check chat. England will not run away from its Ukrainian commitment. Yep. Biden left both Trump and Putin on the loose. Biden winning the first time surprised quite a few people because he was not popular, but he was a symbol of normality and stability. Running the second time with his health failing, he either should have never run at all, or if there was any concern of his health being an issue and him not being able to muster charisma to rally people to vote for him again, um, then yeah, he either should have never run or he should have dropped out much sooner. And either Kamala Harris or another person should have been picked. I mean, at the end of the day, um, even within their own party, there wasn't a lot of popularity, enthusiasm, and happiness with Biden or Harris, with either of them. Um, same thing with Hillary Clinton. Actually, she was not all that popular, but among Democrats, just like with among Democrats, finding one singular person who makes everyone happy is actually kind of a hard thing to do because both Republicans and Democrats have always had these factions within them that have very differing viewpoints on a lot of stuff. Um, but the Democratic factions have historically been, in my opinion, quite a bit more divided compared to Republican factions who, little by little, especially with the strongman, uh, you know, politics that have been injected into the GOP in recent years, uh, now they're kind of being forced to unify under a banner of right now it's MAGA. Don't know what it'll be tomorrow, but yeah, yeah. Anyway, a lot of things could have been different. Democrats could have made much better decisions earlier on. Zelensky is not playing nice with Poland for some time now. This is a big mistake. Poland was there for Ukraine from day one. There's a lot of tension and hurt emotions on both sides in Poland and Ukraine. Guys, in Poland, just like many countries, there is a divided electorate and divided opinions. There's kind of this, even just putting parties aside, there is this uh, conservative and liberal halves, and a lot of countries want to deny it, but it's true in a lot of European countries, especially. There's more uh, pro-Ukrainian groups and more isolationist, focus on just Poland and keep, our safety kind of groups. And there was a moment where both sides were quite united in support for Ukraine. But then in the last Polish election, some, the longtime ruling party lost their position, and you saw some who were supporters of that party um, take out to the streets. Was it farmers' protests? No, that was yeah, and the blocking of protests and attempts to block entry into Ukraine and delivery of supplies. Um, it's been a divided issue for a long time. It has been. There's a lot of good people in Poland who love Ukraine, and vice versa. There's also people in Ukraine who are traumatized and very hurt and angry at everyone, at the world for not helping more. And there's a lot of people in Poland who don't have that feeling of kinship or connection with Ukraine. You know, it's I mean it's a lot. In my opinion, the situation in Poland is a lot like the situation in the U.S. And Zelensky is doing the best he can with the hands he's been dealt, but without assistance from allies, it's going to be harder and harder. I still like Zelensky. I think he's doing a good job. I just think that Russia is aware of the fact that you know they don't care about their people and they're willing to weather the storm and go through a lot of shit and put force their people through a lot of shit. Uh, and they see that a lot of democracies, the U.S., Poland, Ukraine included, their people aren't going to want to go through what uh, what keep going through this war, especially Ukrainians, more so than anyone, because they're the ones actually losing their lives and being terrorized by the Russian army. Especially Myanmar, they're so deserving of help. Yeah, I agree. The situation in Myanmar is complex. The one thing that's certain is that the junta needs to be overthrown. The problem, though, is that there is no unity among the coalition. There's an attempt to form government and stabilize after overthrowing the junta, but I personally think there will still be a power vacuum. So you remove the junta, and then you'll have infighting and more war, even after the dictatorship is overthrown. And then when people see a war like that, they're like, "Oh, there's not an obvious bad guy anymore. Everyone's just kind of fighting each other," and they kind of look in different directions, like, "Ah, well, I wanted to support something that had obvious good guys and bad guys." A lot of wars go that way when they become more chaotic, more uh, faction prone, divisive civil war scenarios. My heart aches for Ukraine and Palestine. They had the same health concerns. Trump wasn't publicly ridiculed like Biden. Yeah, no, both of them were publicly ridiculed. Trump was publicly ridiculed by a lot of larger, more mainstream news networks, uh, and a lot of liberal people of influence who were rightfully very scared because of the whole situation. But I mean, obviously, both Biden and Kamala Harris were heavily ridiculed from members of the right, most especially MAGA. Um, I know plenty of everyday Americans who. Oh, and that's hey Maya, good to see you. Good to see you, Maya. Thanks for being here. Yeah, it's been a rough week. I hope it hasn't. I hope you're doing okay. Good to see you. Um, But yeah, no, I mean, there was public ridicule on both sides, but it definitely seemed like it was a lot more toward Trump. Um, but with uh, with Biden and Kamala Harris, it was a lot of just the normal trolling online and um, a bit of it maybe on like Newsmax, Fox News, One America News TV, the couple of more right leaning or far right news outlets. Reason TV has gone from centrist to centrist libertarian, uh, you know, fiscally conservative, socially liberal to full Mises Caucus, MAGA tilt. So they started putting stuff up that was pretty sus, pretty pretty out there even for them, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, it was a lot more visible, the ridicule of Trump. All right. Poland and Ukraine have a very complicated history. It's amazing Poland was as supportive as it was in the beginning. Spilled grain was a big insult. Uh, Tibet tried to keep China back with talismans. Never in my life have I been ruled by a tyrant yet. I'm not a submissive kind of person. Good. That's very good. Yeah. Stay that way, Stretch. Same. I'm not going to let myself be ruled over by a tyrant. If nothing else, I will be a relentless, not just thorn, but metal spike in their foot. Strive to be more than that, but at a minimum, that's what I always will be because just that's my nature. Yeah, with regards to Poland and Ukraine, they do have a very complicated history. That is true, Cheryl. Very true. Talking about the actions of few prosecuted by Polish authorities. I expect Russia has a lot of influence in the Polish-Ukraine relationship. Trump was ridiculed by YouTubers. Biden was in every media outlet. The ageism was nuts. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean by ridicule. If we mean like, I mean, I saw a lot of ridicule of both personally, but either way, I mean, it at this point it doesn't really matter because obviously, about approximately half of the country, as always, approximately half of the country voted one way and half of the country voted the other way, and yeah, both sides in an all or nothing contest left the other side feeling beaten, bruised, and you know, uh, extremely angry and hurt. That's more and more. That's what's happening with each election, and that's a problem. And right now, with Donald Trump, and then pretty much the conservative sweep across Congress and the Supreme Court, uh, and the plans that they have laid out, it's not a good situation. So long story short, let's just hope that the United States has always had two parties, one more option than that actually has a chance to win an election. But one more choice than a one-party state. Let's hope that let's hope the options don't go down and it ends up being going from a two-party state to a one-party state. Because yeah, it's for centuries now, it's always been one massive change to the system away from, you know, a binary democracy to, well, well, to to a one party state like so many other authoritarian countries around the world. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Influencing the unions, perhaps. Oh no, I'm a wreck. Plotting takes the edge off. I hear you, Maya. Massagers. Do Democrats still have a chance to have the House majority? I don't know about all that. Lol. I see House so, and I don't know about that all that. But I've been talking and talking, so I'm sorry. I don't I don't know which thing I said you're referring to. Stretch. 10 million Dems stayed on the couch. That's not nothing. Yeah. No. Exactly. Um. That. Yeah. It's a problem. It's a big problem. Um. And a lot of things could have been done to energize Democrats and even non-Democrats, independents, just people who otherwise might have voted Democrat. Um, complacent and not going to the polls. Um, yeah, but what's done is done. What's done is done. So, what I'll say to all Americans who are here, now's the time. And I don't mean, well, okay, maybe. I think in the States it's already nighttime, but now's the time to act. Now's the time to organize. And that's at the political level, at the social level, at the legal level. And if you're not someone who is, in touch with the legal system, because it can, like a lot of countries, it can become complex. That's fine. But find people, paralegals, attorneys, lawyers, people who you can become more acquainted with. Uh, get more involved, because at every single level among civil society, whether it be protesting in the streets, fighting in courtrooms on various different issues, especially social issues. Uh, I mean, uh, fighting in the political arena, and that means now. That doesn't mean, well, let's wait 2 years from now and see how midterm elections go. No, 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 no. If you are listening, I challenge and urge you to go find, and it could be, let me say this, because I'm not going to push the whole you got to join a party, you got to be part of the two-party system and beat back the other side, all of that. It could even be nonpartisan. Okay, you could join something that isn't even a political party, but it still aligns with your values, like a 501(c)(4), for example, or a political action committee that happens to be one that supports progressives or supports liberals or supports centrists, people who have different opinions and views, that kind of a mix from both sides of the political spectrum in US politics, um, or uh, that's dedicated to a particular issue like women's reproductive rights, or like minority rights, any number of things. But get out, get involved, join what's in your area, find what's in your area, join what's in your area, and if something doesn't exist in your area, go start it. Find like-minded people and start a brand new one, nonpartisan, or a local branch of yeah, or join your local Democratic Party branch. That's what I'm going to say, because and to anyone who might be Republican and who isn't on the MAGA bandwagon, because there are quite a few. But again, the apparently several of them, many of them, either voted or did convert over to the MAGA camp. Um, you know, either voted even if they weren't happy, or voted because they really were drinking the Kool-Aid. Um, don't don't choose party over country. That's all I'm gonna say. That that's my rant on the topic of the U.S. elections. Anyway, guys, this was Obama level excitement. Not sure what more would have driven them to the polls. Yeah, and there was a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz. There was more than there was back when Hillary Clinton ran. There was still the same amount of celebrity fanfare, well, more so, but of course, Hillary Clinton had a lot of, endorsements and celebrities at that time. But I feel like there was more for Kamala Harris, and a big part of that, I think, kind of the shock and awe campaign, and really trying to emphasize save democracy, fight against Trump, don't let him back into the White House. They did their best with what time they had, but I don't think it's just about the excitement and getting word out and having people be interested in Kamala Harris. I think it's also, I mean, realistically, you need to have as much time as possible to get the American people on your side, as well as special interest groups. And there were so many things that had to be done last minute because Joe Biden. It reminds me of the situation in the Supreme Court with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who, honor her memory. She did a lot of great things, but unfortunately, she trusted in a process for the United States that many could see was being infiltrated and would involve dirty tricks being used unapologetically to grab power for decades. Um, and unfortunately, her not stepping down before she passed from this earth made it so that the Supreme Court, well, it wasn't the only reason, but opened the floodgates for the Supreme Court to become the conservative supermajority it currently is and will be for quite a while, most likely. Um, it's kind of like that with Joe Biden. I always had positive and negative opinions about different things with Biden throughout his whole political career, but refusing to step down sooner, or especially if there was major uncertainty about his health, really created a problem. And I get it; he was the incumbent, and the incumbent does have some advantage in an election. Uh, but but he wasn't able to go the distance, and then there wasn't enough time for his replacement to break out and be a more popular candidate and be distanced from him. So a lot of things happened. We could talk all night about it, but what's done is done. There's no point in hyper focusing on it. All that we can do is prepare for the future. Hey, Claire, welcome. Uh, Kind of hard to engage with lawyers when you have barely any money. Yeah, that's true. But not all lawyers. It's true. A lot of lawyers are expensive just to talk to, but there's also a lot of people in the legal system who themselves are activists and who do pro bono work. I mean, and you don't have to saddle them with a ridiculous amount of work, and they don't have to be your one go-to. Lawyers know each other. Lawyers know other lawyers who do pro bono work and are willing to do consultations and break up a case, sometimes, or take one on and uh, still have others who they can consult with in certain scenarios. I mean, find lawyers who care. Find find lawyers who aren't just in it for the money. Unless you do have the money and you know that their reputation is one that's well earned, in which case, at that point you're in the big leagues. At that point uh you're probably hiring someone because you or your organization have the money to do so. But start with pro bono legal practices. Brainstorm with seems more effective to ask Trump voters than for us to brainstorm why they voted the way they did. I mean, yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, yeah, no, getting the big picture is important from both sides of the electorate. Um, yeah, yeah, and having those conversations is important. American Ukraine Pack, yeah, there you go, Cheryl. There you go, perfect. Outside of domestic U.S. Politics, in terms of foreign policy, there are political action committees, and specific to Ukraine, there's American Ukraine Pack. Get involved with them. You know, get involved with them. Start doing activism related to Ukraine in your own community. I've been through some small, unexpectedly enthusiastic and well organized pro Ukraine activism events in smaller cities and towns across the US. You'd be surprised. There are some huge ones in big cities, but there are some pretty big ones in small places too. If something like that doesn't exist yet, start it. If it does exist, join it and get in touch with helping out, working with the big groups that are in DC, like American Ukraine Pack. Uh, have to go to sleep now. All right, good night, Irma. Thanks for coming. There's nothing wrong with his health for his age. This is ageist rhetoric. He's just 80. Whoever it was still might have lost. Whose health? I lost the plot. Biden's. Debate told me Biden was having cognitive problems. He released his health records. He's normal for an 80-year-old. Trump, interesting, would not release his. I mean, I get what you're saying, Maya, but here's the thing. Um, it's not ageism. Okay, I mean, he either dropped out for his health or he just dropped out because he was really pressured or didn't want to run. If he didn't have health problems, then he should have just stuck in the race. So my next question would be why he dropped out if it wasn't for his health. It seemed pretty obvious to me, at least. It's just my opinion. I don't personally know Joe Biden. I wasn't there to personally observe him day in and day out. I just know what I've seen, um, across different interviews and across different recordings of the man. But it seemed to me like his mental health was in question, and that did contribute to him needing to drop out. Um, I'm not trying to be ageist. I'm just saying that it's one or the other, and either situation isn't good. It's still aging, or is that ageist? Has number. Oh, I see. Conversation. Trump clearly has a number of personality disorders. When is the last time anyone heard anything from Biden? Even with the case of Trump, um, I mean, it seems like he may have a few uh, things happening a bit with his cognitive health, but it doesn't seem to me like it's nothing that's going to prevent him from doing what he does in the position of the presidency. And it doesn't seem to me like it's anywhere near as bad as what was happening potentially with Biden. Either way, either way, with or without any kind of cognitive decline or anything like that, Trump just as a man with with or without cognitive issues is a disgrace to the office and a danger to national security, is my opinion. A lot of things are going to happen in the next 4 years, but again, some people have told me, well, this is the administration that this is the hand that's dealt, so we deal with it. Um, which is true. Which is true. There might be a way to actually. I mean, I know I don't like Trump. I know many people here don't like Trump. But if the man does assume the office and can somehow be convinced that assisting Ukraine would be beneficial to him personally or people he knows instead of suing for peace and trying to help Russia, then I mean, to be blunt, feeding his ego and finding a way to push that point and broker a deal with him is what a lot of people are probably going to do if it means getting military support to Ukraine. Um, People have told me that, put emotions aside and just focus on what's best for assistance to Ukraine. And that's politics. But unless something really major happens, I don't foresee convincing Trump as a very likely scenario to send more weapons, if any weapons, to Ukraine. Uh, yeah, after January. So that's kind of why I'm emphasizing the fact that we're going to continue to support Ukraine in any way we can throughout this entire war, um, and beyond, and beyond, because yeah, I mean, like the Kurds, certain Kurdish groups across the Middle East and everything that they've dealt with for decades with minimal support and resources and minimal geographic advantages with their struggle. Um, the Israel Palestine situation, the China Taiwan situation, Nagorno Karabakh, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Turkey, um, the war in Myanmar, the situation with Bougainville, and Papua New Guinea, or the situation with West Papua and Indonesia. Um, all of the Yeah, these are all examples of peoples who many, instead of describing as organized armies, people would describe as partisan groups or freedom fighters or political activists, because it's more than one group, it's more of a loose coalition of different groups of people in those situations. Um, Ukraine as a nation, we have to support to make sure it continues to withstand against the Russian aggression, no matter what. That is key. But also, yeah, we me personally, I will stand ready to support Ukraine and Ukrainians, um, no matter what. Those who are in free, liberated Ukraine and those who are in the occupied territories. And more, I think being ready to adopt that mindset even after this war is over is something that people will need to think about. Help civilians, help those who have been horribly affected by this war. Um, and it doesn't have to be, you know, anything that's military or partisan activity related against Russian occupation. It can just be helping civilians. There's a lot of ways to help people who have been horribly affected by this war, guys. If 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 after the war is over, eventually, however it ends, the war is over for you, then you know that's the world and history will continue on. But I guarantee that for many people, even when this war is over, it the struggle will continue. That's very much the nature of how these things typically go. Okay. Oh wow, I missed a lot of things about Trump, I think. Thought he was polling high enough for him to win. Says Trump, which was true. Someone 2 years younger just won. Obviously wasn't a real issue. Sociopath and narcissistic liar. Apparently America loves that and its president. Yeah, yeah. Trump has narcissism, sociopathy, yeah. Authority defiance disorder, psychologist said so. Michael says Sudan. Yeah, we talked briefly about Sudan earlier. Um. Anyway, the stream's going longer than I meant for it to go, and I actually have another meeting I have to run to here in a bit. So I'm gonna log off here in a bit. But thanks for coming, everyone. Just wanted to vent a bit. Just wanted to talk, and yeah, wanted to let you know we're going to keep supporting Ukraine. So stay tuned, stick with us, and just know that we're going to continue assisting Ukraine and Ukrainians uh, in the long run. That that is undeniable. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. Good to see you. Good to see you, Maya. Yeah, we should catch up sometime. It's been a minute. If you want to come onto the stream sometime, let me know. I'd love to talk. I'd love to pick each other's brains, just go over different topics. But yeah. All right, everybody. Good night. Stay safe. Stay active. Get active if you aren't already. Um, you know, get into it. Politic. You may not take an interest in politics, but politics damn well will take an interest in you. And at that point, it can be too late. So, yeah, thanks everybody. Have a great night. Mitch Ashton says, as I said earlier, it was very good to hear from you on this stream, Secular. Yeah, thank you, Mitch. I appreciate